All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our Indiana Solar 101 this evening. My name is Zach Schalk. I'm the Indiana Program Director for Solar United Neighbors. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm joined by my colleague, Dan Robinson, who will be helping us out in the answering questions in the chat and making sure that if folks have questions we need to answer during the presentation, that I respond to those. We are going to go ahead and give folks a minute or two to join because we have a good number of RSVPs tonight. While people are joining, please go ahead and share, introduce yourself in the chat. You can let us know who you are and where you're joining from. Thank you, Joey, for demonstrating. But if you just let us know your name, where you're calling in from, and what brings you here tonight, kind of what your level of interest is about solar. And if you're a solar co-op member, please let us know. So yeah, I think we'll go ahead and just give people another minute to join. And for those of you who are just calling in, my name is Zach Schalk. I'm the Indiana Program Director for Solar United Neighbors. And I will be your presenter this evening. We're going to give folks just one more minute to get started, and we'll get started shortly. But for those of you who are just joining, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. And you can share your name, where you're joining us from, what brings you here tonight, what's your level of interest is in solar, and if you're a co-op member. And I would just definitely encourage everybody, when you share something in the chat, to please make sure you send the message to everyone. If you send it to just hosts and panelists, that means just Dan and I will be able to see it. And we want to make sure that everybody can see your message, whether it's your introduction here at the beginning or any questions that you might have later on in the evening. So I think we have a good number of folks on the line, so I'm going to go ahead and get us going. But just once again, for those of you who are just joining, my name is Zach Schalk. I'm the Indiana Program Director for Solar United Neighbors. We're just encouraging folks to introduce themselves in the chat. Please make sure you send your message to everyone so everybody can see. And I will go ahead and get us started on this presentation of Indiana Solar 101. So first, just a little bit of housekeeping. I think everybody probably has the handle of Zoom at this point, but just want to make sure that you're able to choose your audio options that fit you best. So make sure that you're able to hear us all right. Throughout the presentation, we'll have plenty of time to answer questions. So please do share your questions in the chat. And just as I mentioned before, if you do share a question during the presentation, please make sure that you send it to everyone. So you see a little to area on your message, and make sure it says everyone as opposed to panelists and hosts. That way everybody can see the question, because there are a lot of folks on the line who can probably help to answer, share their perspective as solar owners. And also we want to make sure that everybody gets to benefit from your fabulous questions. Finally, the webinar is being recorded, and we will share a link to the presentation to everybody who RSVP'd after this evening wraps up. So first, just to get things started, I did want to make sure to introduce Solar United Neighbors, my organization. We are a vendor-neutral national 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we're dedicated to helping Hoosiers go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. And before we get too far into the presentation, I did just want to take a moment to reflect on the inequities of our current energy system, and to talk about why energy democracy and equity is so central to our work. So when Sun started in 2007 as a volunteer organization focused on helping people in Washington, D.C. neighborhood that was quickly gentrifying install solar panels, a big reason why they focused on solar was that it allowed people to stay in their homes and reduce their energy bills with clean, locally produced solar energy. And so that kind of grassroots local mindset has really been at the foundation of our work. And so as we build an energy system of the future, as we work to help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights, the reason we want to do that is to create a clean, just, and equitable energy system with rooftop solar at the cornerstone. Our current energy system places far too much of the burden, costs, and the negative impacts on low-income communities, Black and brown communities, indigenous communities, communities of color around the country. And so by investing in local energy generation, clean local energy from rooftop solar, we hope to put some control and agency in the hands of individuals and communities around the country, and to make sure that the energy system we're building together is clean, just, and equitable for the future. So just a little bit more about Sun. So as I've mentioned, we're a national organization. We've helped more than 6,500 families go solar since launching in 2007. And here in Indiana, we actually launched our state program in 2019. And since then, we've helped more than 200 families install solar panels, helping to invest millions of dollars in the local economy and offsetting tens of thousands of metric tons of CO2 through those investments in rooftop solar. And we wouldn't have been able to make those investments possible without the support of our many partners. We have fantastic partners around the state. Many of these folks are how we connect with people like you. So in particular, Solarize Indiana has really helped us connect with many fantastic grassroots solar advocates and solar owners around the state, but we have many statewide partners that help make our solar co-op successful. And tonight we'll be talking in particular about our 2 open solar co-ops in Indiana, one in Boone and Hamilton counties, and then one in Indianapolis. And we have specific local partners in both of those communities that have really helped us increase our impact and connect with more community members. So thank you to all of our partners. And so before we dive into the meat of the presentation, I did just want to upfront make sure that everybody was aware that this is our last Solar 101 before the sign-up deadline for our 2 currently open solar co-ops. So as I mentioned, we have one in Indianapolis and we have another for Boone and Hamilton counties. So if you are still considering whether or not to join a co-op, now is really the time to take action before they close to new members on March 31st. And so you can, I'll talk more about the co-op process later this evening, but if you're just looking to make sure you join the co-op before that deadline, you can go to solarunitedneighbors.org/Indianapolis or solarunitedneighbors.org/Boone or Boone Hamilton in order to join the co-op that's appropriate for you. Okay, so let's get to the meat of the presentation. So tonight I will be making a presentation in 3 parts. So first, I'm going to talk about solar technology. So that's the nuts and bolts of your solar system. Then we'll cover solar economics and why an investment in rooftop solar can make sense for you and kind of what to think about when you're making that investment. And then finally, we'll talk about our solar co-op model and how solar co-ops can work to make it easy for you to go solar. So solar technology. And I should say before I get going, please feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat. Again, just make sure to send them to everyone. My colleague Dan will be answering questions, and I'm sure we have some other solar owners that can share their perspective as well. But at each of those different sections, we'll have a break where if there are any unanswered questions that we can address them then. So please, as questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat. So I give this presentation quite a bit, and as you can imagine, I'm sure that that you've come across some skepticism about solar in Indiana. We often hear, is there enough sunshine to make rooftop solar work here in Indiana? And what this slide is demonstrating is that the answer is unequivocally yes. So what you're looking at here is a solar intensity map. It demonstrates the available solar resource in the continental United States, with a nice circle around Indiana, which is right there in the middle of the scale. But what's nice about this map is it also shows an inset of Germany, which is a country with some of the highest rates of solar penetration in the world. And as you can see here, Germany has much less available solar resource than we have here in Indiana. So if they can make it work in Germany, we can definitely make it work here in Indiana. So we have plenty of sunshine to grow all those corn and soybeans. So we might as well harvest some of that sunshine to pay for our electric bills with solar. And thousands of Hoosiers across the state have already made that decision. What you see here is a snapshot in time from 2011, 2017, and 2021, captured by our friends at Siren, showing where we know about solar installations in the state of Indiana. And you can see there's been a significant growth in solar, excuse me, over the past several years, as thousands of Hoosiers have decided that investing in solar is a right choice for them. So just to make sure we're on the same page here, tonight we're going to be talking about solar photovoltaic, or PV solar. This is a specific type of solar technology that creates electricity from solar panels. And there are other types of solar technology out there, but we're really just going to be focusing on PV solar tonight. That's the largest portion of the market. And so over the next couple slides, we'll be breaking down the different components of the typical solar energy system, so that you're familiar with kind of how the technology works and how it all fits together. And so what you see here on this slide is an example of the typical residential rooftop solar installation. Every individual solar installation is going to look a little bit different, but they're all going to have these components in some configuration. So first is a solar array. So that's the kind of fancy name for a bunch of solar panels strung together. And the solar array, the solar panels are the workhorse of the system. That's where that's the part of the system that absorbs the solar energy, converts it into direct current electricity. And so then that direct current electricity flows to number 2 here, which is your solar inverter, which is kind of the brains of the operation. That's the part of the system that takes the direct current electricity, turns it into AC, or alternating current electricity, which is what we actually use in our home. It also has some other kind of control features that really help to make the system function safely and efficiently. Third, after the electricity is converted to AC electricity, it then flows to your electrical panel. That's where all of the circuits in your home connect, and that's where if you have a load in your home that needs that electricity that your panels are creating, if you have your lights on, you have your television running, that's where the electricity will connect from your solar system and go into your home. But if you're producing more electricity than you're actually using, your electricity will actually flow through your utility meter, where it'll go out onto the electric grid and be where those electrons will serve your neighbors and your neighbors' neighbors until they're all spent up. And so we're going to break down each of these components in a little bit more detail in the coming slides. But first, there is some important terminology that you'll hear me using tonight. So the first thing to know about is kilowatts. Kilowatts are 1,000 watts. And a watt is a measure of power. So it's what your system capacity is measured in. It's the amount of electricity your system can produce at peak production at a given time. You'll also hear me say kilowatt hours, which is a measure of energy. And a watt hour is basically what your electricity consumption is measured in. It's also what your electricity production is measured in. So it's a measure of energy, that power over time. And so you pay for kilowatt hours on your electric bill. And so this slide demonstrates a little bit of what kind of you can expect from solar panels. This image is drawn to scale. So solar panels are kind of between 5 to 6 feet tall, about 3 feet wide. They weigh anywhere between 30 and 40 pounds, depending on the panels. And basically, the way that you understand your system size is by taking the wattage rating of each individual panel and multiplying it by the number of panels in your system. So in this example, we have 12 solar panels that are each 350 watts. And so you multiply 350 by 12 and you get a 4.2 kilowatt solar system. And so just for a little bit of context, the average size that we see in this area is between 6 and 7 kilowatts. But for you as an individual, you will size your system based on your actual budget, your energy consumption, and really what your goals are, how much of your electricity you're trying to offset, and also how much size you have to actually fit the physical panels. Excuse me. And so there's a wide range there. We definitely help folks through the co-op who are interested in much smaller systems, or some folks who are interested in much larger systems. So it really depends on your individual interests and needs. So let's dive a little bit deeper into some of those system components. So first we'll talk about the solar panels, probably the part of the system that you're most familiar with. As I mentioned earlier, they're the workhorse of the system. They're designed to absorb solar energy and turn it into direct current electricity. And so basically the solar panels themselves are primarily, most of the work happens in the solar cells. Those are silicon wafers that are then surrounded by encapsulant, glass, a sturdy metal frame. And all of that is designed to protect those silicon solar cells, and then also protect the junction box underneath the panels. And so they're very sturdy. They're designed to handle the elements. They're designed to be outside in Mother Nature. You might hear the term module used interchangeably with panel. It's just a kind of different way to say panel. And again, when you string those panels or modules together, that's what's called a solar array. And so for most folks who are getting a rooftop installation, another important component is the racking. So that's what actually connects your system to your roof. As you'll see here, this is a very traditional installation going in on a pitched asphalt shingle roof. But there are all kinds of different ways to attach your solar panels to your roof. Really, no matter what kind of rooftop you have, there's a solution for you, including if you have a flat roof and you don't want to penetrate your roof, there are ways to safely attach or secure your solar panels to your roof. But we do also support folks who are pursuing ground mount systems. If you, for whatever reason, can't install solar on your roof, or you just don't want to, and you have the space to do a ground mount system, you certainly can do that. You'll just want to let your solar installer know, and you can also let us know when you sign up for the co-op, so we know that we're checking the right part of your property to make sure it has good space and sunlight for solar panels. We do, generally speaking, encourage people who are looking at solar to install solar panels on their roof. That's just because you're not using your roof for anything else. And if it has the capacity to hold the panels, it's usually a little more simple to put the panels up there. There might be some additional costs for doing a ground mounted system because you, generally speaking, need to bury the power lines. And you also have to build a little bit more infrastructure to support the panels. But if that's what works best for you, that's definitely something that our co-op model can help you out with. So whether you're installing your panels on your roof or on the ground, there are a couple considerations that you need to be aware of that will determine whether or not this is a good site for solar. So first is the orientation. Ideally, you would like the panels to be facing south. That's remember, these panels, generally speaking, are not moving. And so facing south is what's going to allow them to capture the maximum amount of sunlight over the course of the year. But panels today are efficient enough that they can really be facing east or west and still be generating electricity to make it a good investment. You really just don't want your panels to be facing north. And I'll just qualify that by saying I have solar panels on my roof and they face east and west, and they produce plenty of electricity for me. Second, you want to make sure you're avoiding as much shading as possible. Any time that your solar panels are shaded is a time when they're not going to be producing electricity for you. So you can have a little bit of shading on your system just around the edges at different parts of the day. You really want to make sure that your solar panels are unobstructed from the peak production at the peak production times of the day. So depending on the time of year, that's usually between 9 and 10 in the morning to between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. And then you also want to make sure that you keep enough, you have enough space to actually physically mount those, those panels. As I mentioned, they're between, 3 feet wide, 5 to 6 feet tall. So they actually take up a little bit of space. And so our best rule of thumb is that for the absolute smallest system size that most residential installers will actually complete, you need at least 200 square feet of space to actually fit the solar panels. And that's for like a 2 kilowatt system, which is a very, very small residential installation. And you can kind of scale that up from there. The last thing that isn't mentioned here, if you are installing on your roof, you do want to consider your roof condition. So our best rule of thumb is that if you're going to need to replace your roof sometime within the next 10 years, you should probably do that first or at the same time that your solar panels are being installed. And that's just to avoid having to remove the panels, replace the roof, and put them back up down the road, which will eat into your return on your solar investment. So the last thing that I'll touch on here is that finding out whether or not your roof is a good fit for solar is actually one of the benefits of joining the co-op. When you sign up for our co-op, we will do a remote roof assessment for you, and we'll let you know if we think that your property is a good fit for solar based on all these considerations. If something has changed, like for instance, you had some trees that are visible in the satellite image of your home that you've since removed, that changes the capacity to host solar panels, you can let us know that when you sign up for the co-op, or also via email after you sign up. But we'll let you know up front if we think your system, or I'm sorry, your property is a good fit for solar, or if it isn't. We can also we'll let you know that as well, so that you don't get your hopes up. So the next system component we should talk about is the inverter. And again, this is kind of the brains of the operation. The inverter is the part of your system that takes the direct current electricity that's produced by your solar panels and turns it into AC, or alternating current electricity. That's the primary function of the inverter, as well as some other kind of system control and monitoring capacities. And so there are a couple different kinds of inverters on the market. And before I dive into the weeds here, I do just want to let everybody know that if you don't want to get too concerned with the weeds, your solar installer will design a system that uses the components that you need for your individual situation. So you don't need to worry too much about these different options. But if you do want to know the different options that are available, here's how to distinguish the 3 different inverter types that we have here on this slide. So first, we have on the far left, the red and black inverter is the string inverter. And so this is mostly used for ground mounts and commercial installations, because it's the simplest and the simplest type of inverter. It basically strings all the panels together and then does the inversion process at once. This is great for very simple installations where there's no complicated array layout or no shading of the panels, and they're all facing the same direction. But it can lead to inefficiencies for more complicated systems, or panels that are facing different directions, or have shading at different times of day. And so to solve for that problem, on the far right here are what they're called microinverters. They were kind of invented to solve for that problem. And they basically are tiny inverters that operate underneath each individual solar panel. So they're optimizing each individual solar panel. They're doing that inversion at the panel level before feeding the electricity into your home. And so this is really great for complicated systems, high efficiency systems, but it does add costs and it does add complication to the system design. And it isn't, strictly speaking, necessary for a lot of systems. And so kind of the best of both worlds is the one that we have here in the middle. That's the string inverter with DC optimizers. And so that's where all the panels are strung together with an optimizer at the panel level, but then the inversion process still happens at a central location. And so this allows your system to be optimized for, if you're like me and your panels are facing different directions, and so they're getting different amounts of sunlight at different parts of the day, while minimizing system costs and different system components. So for a lot of folks today, the string inverter and DC optimizers are what you're going to get. That's kind of the industry standard these days. Next up is the electrical panel. So again, this is where all the circuits in your home come together. and this is for most folks a very simple connection where your solar panels just or your inverter will then just connect very simply into your electrical panel. For some folks, especially if you're in an older home or for whatever reason, if your electrical panel is full, you might need an electrical service upgrade or a panel upgrade, depending on your individual situation. But that is relatively rare. And again, this is another benefit of joining the co-op. As part of the co-op process, first of all, you will, after the solar company is selected, you will receive a standard offer sheet that includes things like how much it would cost to do an electrical system or a panel upgrade. And then also the solar company will set an appointment with you where they are either visiting your home in person or are doing it on video. It's what a lot of companies have adopted since the start of the pandemic. And they will actually look at your electrical system and should be able to let you know whether or not a service upgrade is required. And so you'll already know the cost of what it would be if it is required, and then you should know up front whether or not an upgrade is needed, so there shouldn't be any surprises as if you do move forward with your installation. So one other component that folks are often interested in, but actually that wasn't included on our chart earlier, are batteries. Especially after the outages that we've seen in places like Texas and California that have gotten a lot of headlines, more and more folks are interested in battery storage for backup power. So it is important to know that if you want to make sure that you have power when the grid goes down and that you're able to use your solar panels in that situation, for most folks, you are going to need battery backup. This is another key function that the inverter plays that I mentioned earlier. For most inverters, when the grid goes down, your inverter will actually send a signal to your panels to shut the system down. And that's a safety mechanism. And that's because we want to make sure that we aren't accidentally sending electricity out onto the grid where a line worker might be trying to fix the problem and we could get somebody hurt. So again, if you want to make sure that you're able to generate electricity and have electricity while the grid is down, you will want to install battery storage. So battery storage is great for resilience. It's great for backup power. It's great for making sure you have electricity at all times if you have critical loads like medical equipment that you want to make sure stay online, or if you just want to be sure you're prepared for a disaster or emergency. But in Indiana, it is not going to be great for your return on investment. There aren't really any good mechanisms in Indiana's investor-owned utilities to make money by providing services to the grid or using electricity at different times of day from your batteries when it might be cheaper to do that than using electricity from the grid. So batteries are great for disaster preparedness and resilience, not so great for a return on investment, though that is something that we hopefully will see in the future, especially as the cost of batteries continues to go down. So if you want to learn more about battery storage, you can go to our website, solarunitedneighbors.org/storage. We have a whole bunch of resources, including a free downloadable guide that covers everything you'll want to know about batteries and pairing battery storage with solar. We also have a whole hour-long webinar you can find on that webpage just talking about pairing battery solar and storage. The last thing that I'll mention here is that if you are really interested in battery storage, but the economics just don't make sense to you right now, make sure to let your solar company know that you'd like to install batteries in the future, or at least you're interested in that option. And they can make sure to design your system so that a battery can be more easily integrated in the future. And you can kind of talk about your options right now at this stage of the process, even if you aren't planning on installing batteries today. So that basically wraps up the technology section. Before I get to some of our frequently asked questions, Dan, is there anything else, or are there any questions that came up in the chat that I should answer?
No, I think we're doing just fine. In fact, it's funny, Gwen just asked a question about batteries being added later, and you answered it right away. So you are on it.
Perfect. I didn't even see that. Well, thank you, Gwen, for asking the question. Okay, well, I'll just cover some of these frequently asked questions that we get. But again, if you have any more questions that come up, please feel free to answer them in the chat. And if they haven't been answered by the time I get through this list, I will answer them for you. So first of all, how long do systems last? This is a great question. Basically, the industry standard for solar panels is 25 years. And that doesn't mean in year 25 they'll drop dead. Basically, that's just the general lifetime that you can expect. And then the system will just start to produce a little bit less efficiency as the components degrade over time. The next question is about warranties. So there are three main type of warranties that you will want to know about and consider. So first is actually related to that 25-year lifespan of your solar panels, and that's the production warranty. This is where that 25-year guarantee generally comes from. And this is between you and the solar panel manufacturer. And generally speaking, the production warranty says that in year 25, you can expect your solar panels to be producing somewhere between 80 to sometimes more than 90% for the higher end panels of their day one nameplate capacity. And so that gives you certainty that you know how much energy you should be producing in year 25 from these solar panels. And if your panels are underproducing for some reason, the solar manufacturer will replace those panels for you. Although I can say I have actually never spoken to anybody that has had any problem with the production warranty, simply because the solar panels are reliable. And that is actually also true for my personal experience of the next warranty, which is the product warranty, at least for solar panels. So there are actually different product warranties for your solar panels and for your inverter. For your solar panels, generally speaking, your product warranty is also going to be that same 25-year window, though there is some variation depending on the manufacturer. And it basically just says if the panel breaks, the manufacturer will replace it. For the inverter, usually the standard product warranty is between 10 to 12 years, so that can be extended to 25 years. And it says the same thing. If your system, or if the inverter breaks, the warranty will cover replacing the system. A lot of our solar co-ops end up with seeing that extended warranty as kind of a value add of our co-op process. And then the third warranty is the labor and workmanship warranty. So that's between you and the solar company. And generally speaking, that will cover things like roof penetrations. It'll cover the electrical work that they do. It will cover basically the stuff that the solar company is actually touching on your system. And so that has a wide range as far as how long that warranty lasts and what all it covers. So it really depends on the individual solar company and their offer. I've seen anything from a 1-year labor and workmanship warranty to lifetime labor and workmanship warranties. So that really varies widely. But again, this is one of the benefits of the co-op model, is that when you join on that same offer summary sheet, you'll see exactly what warranties you can expect for all of these: the production, the product warranties, and the labor and workmanship warranty. Excuse me. So another question we often get is about homeowners insurance. How will installing solar panels impact my homeowners insurance? And so for most folks, there actually isn't an impact at all. You definitely want to make sure that you tell your homeowners insurance that you're installing solar panels. But for most of the people that I've spoken with, including my own personal experience, you can notify them, and it's, generally speaking, will already be covered by your homeowners insurance. But now that the solar panels are on your plan, if there is anything that should impact the solar panels, they'll be covered by your homeowners insurance as well. And so one of the main reasons why you want to make sure you tell your homeowners insurance is that sometimes your homeowners insurance, as we've heard from at least 2 co-op members, your homeowners insurance will actually cover removing your solar panels, replacing your roof, and reinstalling those solar panels. So that's in the case of the 2 solar co-op members that we've heard from in the past. They experienced a hailstorm. Their solar panels were totally fine, but the roof was actually damaged. And so they ended up getting a roof repair from their homeowners insurance, and they didn't have to worry about paying to take the panels down and put them back up because it was covered by their insurance. Next question we often get is about home value, and then also related to that, property taxes. So for home value, there's robust national data showing that investing in rooftop solar can definitely increase your property values. A Zillow survey from 2019 said an average that they saw was about a 4.1% increase. Unfortunately, there aren't any Indiana specific data that we can point to, simply because the Indiana solar market is so new and there haven't been very many Indiana solar homes put on the market yet. But you should definitely expect your home value to go up with solar panels. But on a related note, property taxes are an interesting benefit of installing solar here in Indiana. So there's actually a property tax exclusion for investments in renewable energy, including solar panels. So when you install your solar system, all you need to do is file a simple little bit of paperwork with your county tax office. And basically the next time they assess your property, they will exclude the value of your solar panels. So your property, your assessed value for property tax purposes will not go up, even if your home value, your appraised value of your home does go up. Next, we often get questions about maintenance. So this is definitely one of the benefits of rooftop solar installation. They are very low maintenance systems. There are no moving components, especially if they're on a pitched roof. They tend, and you're in somewhere that isn't very dusty, like most of Indiana. They tend to clean themselves off when it rains. So there's really not all that much that you need to worry about. Our kind of best practice advice is that every 5 years or so, you might want to have your system, checked on by your solar company. You can ask them to clean it as well, or even you can just hose your system down. But there's very little maintenance. You don't really need to worry about your system in that way. Next, will a homeowners association allow solar on my home? So this really depends on your individual HOA, whether or not there are any specific homeowners association restrictions in your bylaws. But we do have good news on this front. Just this year, the Indiana General Assembly passed a new law that creates a pathway for a homeowner experiencing restrictions by their HOA, whether it's a prohibition in the actual bylaws of the HOA, or they've just had a request to install solar panels rejected. So there's now a new pathway that you can follow to get support from your neighbors to install solar on your home. This week, we should have an updated webpage on our website that will explain how to go through that process. But for now, if this is something you're interested in, if you think your HOA will be a barrier for you going solar, please feel free to contact us and we can go over it in more detail with you individually. And finally, what if I'm in a historic district? So similar story. There aren't really any one-size-fits-all rules, though generally speaking, historic districts simply don't want to see solar panels facing the street. There will definitely be an approval process, so you'll need to submit some paperwork you have to submit some paperwork with the historic district and get their approval for your installation. So that covers our frequently asked questions. Dan, is there anything else that I might have missed? I saw some activity in the chat and it looks like you were getting some answers out there too.
Yeah, I got some out there, but there was a few I just didn't have time to get to, so I'll just let you respond to them. Mary Blackburn had asked about manufacturers, who the manufacturers are, and I told her that it depends on the installation company. They usually include a couple different manufacturers, but she's asking, she said, I asked, since there's that concern about tariffs on Chinese imports and how that might affect production warranties.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a wide range of manufacturers that have made the panels that have been used by our co-ops. It's an interesting question about the tariffs impacting any of the warranties. It certainly wouldn't. It shouldn't impact as far as like the availability of panels, because the solar companies who are installing for this round of the co-op, they generally speaking have already purchased all those panels, so they're sitting in a warehouse somewhere ready to be put on your roof. It certainly wouldn't impact the production warranty because that's really just about the the panel's ability to produce. Might it impact if you need to replace the panels in the future? That's an interesting question. I actually haven't seen anything about that, so I don't think so. But that's a good question. I can certainly ask that. I haven't seen that question come up, so that's an interesting one. Because it is true that a lot of solar panels used in the United States are manufactured in China, and there's a lot of uncertainty around what tariffs may or may not be put in place. So I can certainly look into that, and we'll try to share if there's anything worth sharing about that.
Tracy Meister asked, isn't the value increased, and I'm assuming she means on home property value, only if the entire system is paid for at the time of sale?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So this is generally more of a concern in states that have solar leasing or other kinds of third-party ownership uh, programs available, where basically, even though you have solar panels on your home, there's another company that actually owns the panels. Here in Indiana, that really isn't a part of the market, and it's a legal gray area, so there's nobody really offering that setup. So if you finance your system, it'll, the panels aren't owned by somebody else. You just are financing a loan, just like any other loan for something, a home improvement. And so presumably when you would sell your home, you would pay off that loan as part of that process.
Doug Stout just put a question in. Does the net metering benefit advantage that expires June 30th transfer with the home sale?
So that's a great question. We'll definitely be talking more about net metering in the next section. But to specifically answer your question, yes, I mean, definitely be sure to hold on to your interconnection paperwork, because that is what will, guarantee the ability to transfer ownership. But yeah, the net metering should stay with the system as long as the system stays in place. If there are any credits that have been built up on your account, those won't transfer, but the ability to stay in the full retail rate net metering system, or I'm sorry, program until either 2032 or 2047, depending on when your system was installed, would transfer to the new owner, assuming they set up their account with a utility and make sure that transfer process happens.
And the last question, which I think you'll just deal with here in a little bit, was Andrew asked what was the selection process for the installer and what kind of effect does the co-op have on pricing? And I know you'll get to that in the third section. So
yeah, great questions, Andrew. We will definitely cover that in just a little bit.
And then John Laborde just asked, is there a maximum credit on net metering that can build up? And again, I know you're going to cover some of this stuff in the
yeah, we will definitely dig deeper into net metering here in just a second, but to directly answer that question, no. At least, if you get your system installed by this deadline, which I'll talk more about in a second for folks who don't know what I'm talking about, you will be able, in Indiana, there's no deadline for your credits. Your credits just continue to accrue and roll over until they're spent up. All right, let's see. I think I see a question about, are the panels recyclable? Which is a great question from Tracy, or what happens to damage our old panels. So basically right now in the United States, there isn't any mass market for recycling or really disposing panels at all, just because the vast majority of solar panels, and I'm talking about 95, I don't even know, the vast majority of solar panels that have been put in place or put in service in the United States are still in their useful life. And so, and because they're reliable, they really don't break down. They really don't break very often at all. They just haven't been decommissioned. But there is obviously, as we install these panels, a foreseeable future in which that will become a much bigger issue. And so there actually is a good amount of money that is included in the federal infrastructure law that passed last year to study that issue in particular and to help jumpstart solar panel recycling industry here in the United States. I think there are lessons for us to learn from Europe on that, where as with a lot of things renewable energy, they are ahead of where the United States is. And so they do have some solar panel recycling programs there, but that's still kind of an open question here in the United States. And so yeah, so there's going to be some hopefully more infrastructure and capacity to really handle those decommissioned solar panels here in the coming years. But right now, there really aren't many great options. Though you can definitely talk to your solar company about what they would advise should you need to decommission any of your solar panels. All right, great questions. I'm going to go ahead and keep us moving. But again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will definitely make sure to get to you. So let's talk about the economics of solar. And what you'll see on this slide is where I always like to start this discussion, because I think oftentimes people think about an investment in solar kind of in a vacuum, when in reality, you should be thinking about it in the context of your monthly electric payments. And so what you're seeing here on this slide is the average electric rates from Indiana's 5 investor utilities. What you can see is that over the last decade, those rates have gone up by nearly 50%. And so what solar panels allow you to do is to basically hedge against this ever increasing electric bills that we see, and to take your next 20, 30 years of electricity payments, bundle them together and invest them in an asset that's actually going to generate a return for you over the lifetime of that asset. So that's really what solar panels are. They're allowing you to put control of where your electricity comes from and how much you're paying for your electricity in your hands as a solar owner. And a big reason why we're having this conversation today is that solar economics have only continued to get better. So the cost of actual solar technology, the physical equipment itself, has dropped down significantly since solar panels kind of came online in the 1970s. And this slide breaks that down in a little bit of a different way that I think helps to respond specifically to the question somebody asked earlier about kind of where the value of the co-op can come in from an economics perspective. So what this slide does is it looks at the average cost of residential solar installation over the last a little bit more than the last decade, and basically breaks it up into a couple of different components based on real industry survey data. So first is the system components. That's the yellow portion on the bottom. The green in the middle is labor costs, and then the orange up top is soft costs. And that's things like marketing and customer acquisition, permitting, dealing with homeowners associations, all of those kind of things that are tougher to quantify. And what you see in this chart is that as this cost of the system components, the solar panels, the racking, the inverter, have really decreased, where in 2010 they were actually more than half of the cost of installing your system. Today they're less than a third for the actual physical components themselves. And labor has actually gotten more efficient also. But what has remained sticky and now actually makes up a majority of the cost of a residential solar installation is the soft costs. And that's the part that the solar co-op can directly cut into to reduce soft costs. And so that's because you're able to bring together a large group of educated, motivated potential customers, and the solar company can then spend less money actually acquiring those customers, spending the time to educate them about the decision, because folks like you are already taking it upon yourself to learn it, so that you can make an informed decision about whether or not solar is right for you and what your system might look like. So that's where the benefit of the co-op comes in, is by cutting directly into those soft costs. And so the other component about why solar economics are still looking good, but another reason why this year is the time to act here in Indiana, is the federal tax credit. So if you get your system put in place this year in 2022, you are able to take a 26% federal investment tax credit. If your panels aren't installed until next year, that tax credit is actually stepping down under current law to 22% before phasing out entirely for residential installations in 2024. We are absolutely advocating at the federal level for this tax credit to be extended and expanded, and to make it a refundable as opposed to a non-refundable tax credit. But unfortunately, that legislation has stalled for now, though we're definitely still fighting. But so again, the key takeaway here is that getting your system installed this year guarantees that you'll get that 26% federal tax credit. So the other reason why folks here in Indiana are up against the deadline and why installing your panels today makes the most sense is something that was mentioned a little bit earlier in the chat, which is the net metering deadline. So net metering is really all about getting financial value for the electricity that you send to your neighbors on the grid. So the electricity that you aren't using right away at your home. And I think the best way to think about electricity, or I'm sorry, to think about net metering is how it is just to think about it about how it creates an offset on your electric bill for that electricity that you send to your neighbors, the electricity that's produced by your solar panels when you might not be home using that electricity. And so what you see here on this slide is a representation on the left of kind of an average solar production in orange on the day, and then your average energy usage in blue for a day. And then on the right, it's that same kind of equation, solar production in orange and energy usage in blue on the right, but shown over the course of the year. So this is for a system that's designed to cover 100% of your annual electricity needs. So basically what you're seeing is that obviously your solar panels are producing electricity when the sun is out during the day, but you may not be home actually to use that electricity. But so what happens is that over the course of the year, you will accrue credits in the summer months when the days are longer because you're producing more electricity over the course of the month than what you're actually using. And then you get to spend those credits down in the months when your panels aren't producing as much as you're using. So that's like in the winter and fall months here on this chart. And so that's really how net metering allows you to create a solar offset with your production throughout the course of the year. And this is really where, for folks who are motivated to install battery storage so that you get full financial value of your solar production, this is really how you can use the grid as a battery to get that financial value, because you're getting a 1-to-1 kilowatt hour credit. So that means you get the full value of a kilowatt hour that you buy from your utility for the kilowatt hours that you're sharing with your neighbors on the grid. And so to really kind of simplify things for what your electric bill might look like, your electric bill will end up being the electricity used from the grid minus the electricity exported to the grid equals how much you have to pay on your electric bill. You know, of course, setting aside things like fixed charges and taxes. And so in this example, if you used 300 kilowatt hours over the course of the month, and over the course of the month you sent 200 kilowatt hours onto the grid, your electric payment would be 100 kilowatt hours. So whatever your kilowatt hour electric rate is, you would multiply that by 100 to get your cost. But you can also think about this: if you actually sent more electricity to the grid than what you actually used over the course of the month, you would end up with a net credit that you can actually spend down in other months. And so those were the credits. Somebody asked if there's a limit to the amount of credits that you can produce and roll over, and the answer is no. Your credits will continue to roll over, though your initial system size will be limited by how much electricity you use on average historically. And because it's just a kilowatt hour credit, you're not getting an actual cash payment from the utility. There really isn't any incentive to build up a bunch of credits that you're never going to use. So unfortunately, as I've already alluded to, there is a deadline coming up to make sure you secure net metering. And so this is a little bit of more information about how we've made it a little harder on the solar industry in Indiana. So basically, there was a 2017 law passed called SEA 309 that created a timeline for ending net metering. And so the deadline that it's coming up is for Duke and AES Indiana customers is to get your system installed by July 1, 2022. So that's obviously coming up this summer. So we are confident that if you join our co-ops by the March 31st deadline and you are responsive to the solar company, that you shouldn't have a problem getting your system installed and your interconnection agreement completed so that you can receive the full retail rate net metering with your system. But basically, as long as you get your system in place by that deadline, you will receive that full retail rate net metering until 2032. So you'll be in the system for at least 10 years. And if your system doesn't get installed until after that deadline, you will receive the post net metering program, which is called excess distributed generation, or EDG. And basically, when net metering ends, it goes from being a 1-to-1 full retail kilowatt hour credit to those extra, that excess electricity, that the amount that you send to the grid is actually credited at a lower rate, about a third of the cost of the retail rate, plus a 25% addition there. So there is some ambiguity around what exactly is going to happen when net metering ends, and that's because there's actually an ongoing court case that will determine how those excess distributed generation credits are measured. It turns out that it's much more favorable for solar owners for those credits to be measured over the course of the month, just like current net metering credits are measured. But what the utilities are proposing is actually called instantaneous netting, or what we would call no netting, and that is much less favorable to solar owners. So solar advocates, including Solar United Neighbors, have challenged that offer, and we actually won in the Indiana Court of Appeals, who said that the statute SCA 309 didn't allow that instantaneous netting offer that the utilities were proposing. But unfortunately, that has been appealed to the Indiana Supreme Court. So we're still in limbo a little bit to see what ends up happening next. So that's just all a long way of saying you want to make sure your system is installed as soon as possible so that you beat this deadline. Duke and AES Indiana are interpreting the deadline a little bit differently. So if your system, for AES Indiana, they're saying hard stop, your system must be installed by June 30th in order to get net metering. Duke has a little bit of a different take. What they've said on their website is that your interconnection agreement must be approved by June 30th, and then the system installation can actually happen a little bit later. But our best advice to be conservative and to make sure that you get in net metering while it's still available is just to make sure your system is installed by June 30th. That's the best way to just avoid any kinds of headaches, misunderstanding, and confusion down the road. So I know there's a lot of information here, and I'm happy to answer questions on this topic at the end of this section. But the last thing that I'll note here is that the reason SCA 309 was passed in 2017, the reason the electric utilities were able to reduce the value of the credits for rooftop solar is because they had the political power to get their preferred law passed, and we didn't have the power to stop them. And so in addition to helping folks install rooftop solar, we're working to build a solar movement so that we can create that clean, just, and equitable energy system with rooftop solar at the cornerstone that I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. And this is a prime example of where we need people power to combat the influence and money that the utilities are able to throw around at the legislature. And so I hope that whether you sign up for a co-op or not, whether you install rooftop solar or not, I hope that you'll be willing to join our solar movement and to build the power we need to pass fair solar policies here in Indiana so that we can build a clean, just, and equitable energy system. So I also, just to talk a little bit more about that interconnection process, how you secure net metering. We don't need to spend too much time on the specific details, but I did just want to make sure everybody knows that there is a process with a set timeline for securing that net metering program and making sure that you're able to benefit from net metering until 2032. And so here is a little bit of the timeline. So you see there are a set number of days for the utility to respond and kind of for back and forth. Most of this is handled by the solar company, but the key takeaway from here is that if you are just now joining the co-op, or if you're already in the co-op and you haven't signed a contract yet, please be sure to be responsive to the solar company. They're going to be asking questions from you, and they need information from you in order to get this process going. And then, if you get anything from the solar company, or if you hear anything from your utility, please just be as responsive as possible to keep this process moving so that you don't have any problems running up against that June 30th, July 1 deadline. Okay, so I know everybody's always interested in seeing some example pricing. So we finally reached that point in the night. So before I dive into kind of the details of what you're looking at on this page, on this slide, I do want to give just a caveat that this is really just meant to be illustrative. Every individual solar installation is going to look a little bit different. Your system is going to be designed to fit your individual needs, your energy consumption, your budget, the amount of space you have. All of those factors play into what the actual cost of your installation will look like, and also what kind of savings your solar panels will generate for you. But so what this chart is really meant to demonstrate is kind of a rough estimate of what you can kind of expect solar panels, your investment in solar to cost, and then also to see kind of where your return on investment will come from, where your solar panels are going to be producing savings for you, and kind of what range of savings you might expect. Each individual proposal that you receive from your solar company should explain to you when you would reach that break-even point, what your savings would look like, how much of your electricity costs you're offsetting. So again, all of this will look site-specific just for you. But that being said, we are using kind of a blended average of Duke and AES Indiana's real electric rates. So this should give you a good rough sense of what this will look like. So what you're looking at here is our best estimate for two different system sizes. So the first column is a 4 kilowatt system, and the second column is an 8 kilowatt system. And so you remember from earlier, the average system size is somewhere between 6 and 7 kilowatts in this area. So this would be a kind of small, a system on the small side of what we serve, though certainly we've certainly helped people install 4 kilowatt systems. And then somebody who's maybe a little bit on the larger side, though by no means the largest side that we've helped through our co-op. Just to give you a little bit of a sense of scale, my personal solar panels are a little bit more than 8 kilowatts. I have a 2,000 square foot home that has has electric cooking, but does have gas, heat, and water. And an 8 kilowatt system covers a little bit more than 100% of my annual electricity needs. So that just kind of gives you a rough sense of what you might be able to expect. So the way we get the top line number is the upfront cost of the solar panels. And this is where we will multiply this system size by the cost per watt. And the cost per watt is really the best way to compare apples to apples, kind of what you're getting. And so that's how solar is generally priced. And again, you'll be able to see when you join the co-op what the co-op offer is, what the price per watt is for the group offer. But so you multiply 4 kilowatts, so 4,000 times the cost per watt, $2.56. And that is kind of the average cost that we've seen across our Indiana solar co-op since 2019. So it's a good estimate for what you can expect. So you multiply 4,000 times 2.56, and that's how we get the first number, which is a little more than $10,000. And then the second column, we do the same thing except multiplying by 8,000, and that's how we see the 8 kilowatt system. The upfront cost would be a little under $20,500. So that's the upfront cost. Then we get to start seeing the federal tax credit at action. So again, you can take the 26% federal tax credit right off the top there for most folks if you have enough of a tax appetite to use that tax credit. If you don't in the first year, you can actually extend the tax credit over multiple years. But so we subtract 26%, and that's how we get our net cost number. So that's $7,500 for the 4 kilowatt system, $15,000 for the 8 kilowatt system. So now we get to the fun part. This is where we start seeing savings. And so this is where we've done just a little bit of modeling based on kind of, the average residential electric customer and what the average solar panel would produce as far as how much electricity they would produce in Indiana. And that's where you start seeing we've broken out our year one electricity savings, and then we went out to the end of net metering in 2032. So that's where we get our estimated 10-year savings. And then we've estimated the post net metering savings that you can expect to get out to the full 25 years of your system life. And so when you add all those numbers up, that's where we get to our net profit range of somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000 on the smaller system to somewhere between $8,000 and almost $11,000 on the larger system. So again, all of these factors will play together based on your individual circumstances, but this is just meant to give you a rough sense of what you can expect. And if you aren't able to pay cash up front, there certainly are financing options that are available. Your return on investment will always be better if you're able to pay cash, but there are a lot of different financing options that can allow you to stay cash flow positive or reduce your interest payments depending on what you're most interested in. So if you have the option available, oftentimes good options are home equity line of credit, standard loans. There are also solar loans. So those are loans just made for helping to finance solar, and bridge loans, which are generally speaking for the value of your tax credit with either a low or sometimes even no interest that then you pay off when you realize your tax credit when you file taxes in the following year. You can also refinance your home and include the solar system. So there are various programs that allow you to do that. For my particular situation, I was actually able to finance my solar panels just by doing a regular cash out refinance of my home. And I actually lowered our interest rate, and which ended up lowering our overall monthly mortgage payment, and was able to cover the costs of the solar panels just by doing that. So now I have lower mortgage payments and lower electric payments, all from that process, which is pretty great. We also do have partnerships with national credit unions, Clean Energy Credit Union and the Community First Credit Union. Anybody who signs up for our co-ops or is otherwise a Solar United Neighbors member gets access to their financial products. And if you live in a rural area and have a business, you can actually get federal funding from the USDA's Rural Energy for America program, or REAP. And that's something we can help you navigate if you're interested. If you want to look more into financing options, you can visit our website, solarunitedneighbors.org/financing, and we're also happy to help you compare options if that's something you're interested in. All right, so I know I covered a lot of ground there, and I saw a lot of activity in the chat. Dan, are there any questions that I need to respond to?
I think we got to almost all of them. Ryan was helpful and posted a link to the Boone County REMC, noting that it has net metering, which was great for people to know because someone had asked about that. A direct message I got, though, which I thought maybe you might want to address briefly, is someone asked what would be the estimate on no net metering. for some of these costs and stuff. And I answered that's a complicated question we don't know the answer to yet because it's caught up in the courts.
Yeah, So first, let me I think I did forget to say if you are served by a rural electric member cooperative like Boone REMC, or if you're served by a muni, like I know Lebanon has a muni, for instance, that SCA 309, the end of net metering that I described, does not apply to you. That law only applies to Indiana's 5 investor-owned utilities, including Duke and AES Indiana. So if you're a Boone REMC member owner, their net metering doesn't end June 30th. They may choose to end their net metering at some point in the future, but that's up to the co-op. They can make their own decision in that regard. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry, I skipped that part of that slide. Now to the second question about, what happens after net metering? It is very complicated. We do know right now 4 of the 5 investor-owned utilities, so all of them except Duke, have had EDG, that post net metering program, approved by the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. But the way in which they have the utilities have requested to measure the credits, which is different from the monthly netting used under net metering, is what we're challenging in court. And so, as I mentioned, that is now before the Indiana State Supreme Court. As I'm not a lawyer, but from my understanding, the court has broad discretion about whether to take up a case, and also when they would decide to let us know whether or not they're going to take up a case. So there is unfortunately a lot of uncertainty. And this will certainly impact anybody who installs their solar panels today, because you will receive net metering until 2032. But after 2032, you will get whatever the post net metering, whether that's EDG tariff or something else that has been put in place, since today. That's what you'll get after 2032. So there's definitely a lot of uncertainty right now, and we're trying to do our best to be responsible in what we communicate. I'll actually step back to this pricing chart. We actually used the lower excess distributed generation rates that were proposed back last year to produce these estimated savings. And this year's rates are, because the cost of electricity has gone up as the economy has improved since the kind of downturn around with COVID. That means that these credits are actually going to be more valuable than what we've actually modeled in here. But as long as we're able to protect that monthly netting, which is what we were able to do in the Court of Appeals, and what we hope, either whether the Supreme Court takes up the case or not, what we hope the outcome is preserving monthly netting. That will make the difference for somebody who doesn't benefit from that metering really a marginal one. But if the court sides with the utilities and the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission and allows that instantaneous netting, that's when it becomes a much worse picture for solar owners. So there's a wide range of outcomes there. The worst case is that it becomes much more difficult to actually finance and see savings from residential solar systems. The other outcome is that it's a small marginal impact, and honestly, depending on your individual system, if you aren't actually producing more electricity, or I should say sending more electricity to the grid than what you actually use over the course of the month, then it won't impact you at all, because that measurement period is still over the course of the month. And so for a lot of systems, there won't be any impact at all from going to the EDG rate, because if you measure over the course of the month, then you're still getting the full retail value, because you aren't counting any of your credits as being technically exported to the grid. So I know that's very complicated and confusing, and I have to hedge it with a lot of it depends. But unfortunately, that's just the reality of where we are today. And definitely as soon as we get more clarity on that be it from the courts or another regulatory process, we'll absolutely be updating everybody in our network about what that outcome is. So I hope that answered the question. I feel like I talked a lot, and it's always scary when you're doing one of these Zooms and you're not able to see if anybody is actually understanding what I'm saying. But hopefully that answered your question. If there's any clarifying that I can do, please share it in the chat. And I do see Joey saying that's why we need to repeal SEA 309. Yes, so we absolutely need to fight for fair solar policies to make sure everybody gets fair value for the electricity that they're sending to your neighbors on the grid. All right, so let's keep things moving and let's talk about how the solar co-ops work. So as I mentioned earlier, solar co-ops are really just an opportunity to join together with your neighbors, to leverage your bulk purchasing power as a group, to get a great deal on solar, to get technical support from Solar United Neighbors, and to make it easy for you to get a free custom quote at a group rate. The co-op is completely free to join. There's no obligation to go solar, whether with the group or otherwise. So it's really just that opportunity to get a free custom quote and to learn about how solar might work for you. So we're able to help you through that group process to get great value on your installation, to provide technical support through every step of the process. And because we're trying to bring together the solar movement, as I mentioned, we want to help you connect with your fellow solar enthusiasts, whether you end up installing solar panels or not. So this slide basically breaks down the different parts of the co-op process. Though I will just say where we are, as I mentioned before, we are right up against the sign-up deadline on March 31st. So most of this has already happened for the co-op. But just to give you a sense of what we've done over the past several months. So we launched the co-ops, we hold meetings like this and work with those community partners that I highlighted earlier to try to connect with as many community members as possible, like all of you, because we want to grow the group to the largest extent possible, because the larger our group is, the easier time we have trying to get good group value through the co-op process. So that is just, one note. If you know anybody who you think would still be interested, there is still time to join. So please share information about the co-op with your family, friends, coworkers, anybody who you think is interested in exploring solar. So then once the group is large enough, we hold my favorite part of the co-op process, and that's called the selection committee. And so the selection committee is, and I will just answer, I see a question, where do we sign up? So you go to the co-op webpage, and I'll ask my colleague Dan to share that in the chat. So for Indianapolis, it's solarunitedneighbors.org/Indianapolis. And for Boone or Hamilton County, it's solarunitedneighbors.org/Boone. And Dan will share. Yeah, thank you. And so those are links that you can take, and you'll go to the webpage. There's more information about the group. And you can click the bright orange button that says join the co-op to sign up. So unfortunately, we do not, I see another question about Evansville. We do not have a program in Evansville, but our partners, Solarize Indiana, do have a group down there, Solarize Evansville. I think you can connect with them on Facebook, although because net metering has already ended for CenterPoint customers, I'm not sure that they have any active programs right now, because with net metering ended and the post net metering tariff still in limbo, it's a little complicated. So basically, once the group gets large enough, which all of these groups have already gone through this process, we hold the selection committee meeting, and so this is where we get together co-op members, so just ordinary folks who have signed up to join the group, and we actually hold a meeting facilitated by Sun, where we explain the different potential proposals that we collect through a competitive request for proposal process from solar companies who want to work with the group. And we basically facilitate a process where the co-op members learn about the different options, and then select a single company that they want to work with. And so this for this round of the co-op, that process actually happened back in December. I think we had 6 different companies who wanted to work with the group, and basically the co-op members were able to go through, compare the offers side by side, and then make a decision. So that process has already happened. So when you sign up for one of our co-ops right now, you will immediately be connected to the solar company who's selected after we do a roof review, as I mentioned earlier. So we'll do a roof review. We'll make sure we think your roof's a good fit for solar, or if you tell us you're doing a ground mount, we make sure that you'll have space for solar on your property. Assuming that you pass that test, you'll then be connected with the solar company. So right now, if you sign up for the co-op, the solar company is GRNE Solar. So this round of the co-op, we did something a little bit different because of that deadline. We were the selection committee and us, we were worried about the capacity of a solar company to be able to do all of the installs by that June 30th deadline. And so we actually split the co-op up into two halves. So the first members who joined in the first half of the co-op went with Jefferson Electric, and members who joined in the second half of the co-op. So if you join today, you'll be connected with GRNE Solar. They both had great options. They both had great offers. The selection committee was actually torn between the two. So we've never done this before, but we felt that it was appropriate given the deadline, and making sure that there was enough capacity to split it into two like that. So if you sign up today, you'll be connected with GRNE Solar. So basically, when you join the group, you'll get a welcome letter from GRNE that explains introduces you to them, and also includes their contact information in case you want to be proactive. And then you'll also get a summary of the group offer details. And that summary will tell you exactly what to expect as far as their equipment offerings, any upgrade options, what the warranties look like. All of those options are right there in that summary. You'll connect with GRNE in this case, and then you'll set an appointment with them, and they will then produce a free custom proposal for you at the group rate. The whole co-op process at this point is completely free, and so we're just trying to give you the tools that you need to make an informed decision about whether or not solar is right for you. If you have any questions about your proposal, you're more than welcome to contact us. You'll get our emails when you sign up for the co-op. So you will be able to contact us. You can share your proposal with us, and we'll look it over with you and make sure it meets the description of the group offer that as it's supposed to, and we'll help answer any questions that you might have. But so then it's totally up to you as to whether or not you will sign a contract at the co-op rate. I'm assuming that you do. Just for full transparency, Solar United Neighbors, we do get a $600 referral fee for signed contracts that come through the co-op. Even with that fee, that's actually significantly less than the industry average for customer acquisition, which, depending on who you ask and where you are, can range anywhere from $1,500 to more than $3,000. So that's where we get the co-op savings. And then hopefully you sign a contract. Hopefully your installation is completed by June 30th. And then at some point in the future, we will have a celebration where we'll bring you together, and hopefully you can meet your other new solar owners. We actually just had our first in-person Indianapolis solar celebration since the start of the pandemic last week, which was really fun. And we'll definitely hope to be doing more of those soon, so you can connect with other solar supporters like you. All right, so that really is kind of the overview of the co-op process. As I've mentioned a few times, we have our deadline coming up on March 31st to join the group. If you would like to join the co-op, these are the URLs you can use. I know Dan has already shared them in the chat. So I hope that you will join the co-op. And if you know anybody else who might be interested, please send them our way before that March 31st deadline. And the last thing I want to touch on, and then I think there are some questions, so I'll be sure to take questions. But the last thing I want to touch on is whether you're going to join the co-op or not, whether you install solar or not. I do hope that you will join our solar movement and help us build the power we need to pass fair solar policies here in Indiana, so that we can build that clean, just, and equitable energy system with rooftop solar at the cornerstone. So there are a couple steps that you can take. You can send an email to your legislator letting them know that you support solar. We have tools and resources for doing that on our website. You can also meet with your legislator about this, and we are more than happy to help. And we can join that meeting if you'd like, or we can help you prepare. And if you really want to get more involved, we have a group called our Indiana Solar Action Team, which is really kind of the leaders of our solar movement that we work with on a regular basis. Where I know we have at least a couple of our Solar Action Team members here on the line, and we would love for you to join us and to help grow our solar movement. So those are just a few ways that you can get involved. But I will ask Dan to go ahead and launch our. We have a poll that we'd like to launch, and so that will just allow us to collect some information from you in case you are interested in getting more involved with our work. So please just let us know. This is not a commitment. This is basically just let us know if you think you're interested, and we'll follow up with more information, and then we can take it from there. And we will definitely be following up here in the next couple of days if you are interested with more ways that you can get involved. Okay, so while we have that poll up, we can just go ahead and leave that up. Dan, are there other questions that haven't been answered?
The only question that we weren't able to get to, John, who lives in Floyd County, wondered if there was a co-op opportunity for him. And I know you've been connected to some effort in Louisville, based in Louisville, so I wasn't sure if that was a possibility or not.
Yeah, so that's a great question. There is a Solarize Louisville program that's open right now. Unfortunately, I don't know the website for that effort off the top of my head, but I know they've gotten a lot of great media coverage. So I think if you just Google Solarize Louisville, you should be able to see that. And I know they are serving folks on the Indiana side of the river, and they're actually, because of the net metering deadline, which only would apply to certain Indiana customers and not to Kentucky customers. I know from the organizers that they're trying to prioritize folks from Indiana who are part of that effort. So you should be able still to kind of connect with them and hopefully be a part of their process. I can't remember the exact counties, but I'm pretty sure it's all kind of any county that touches the Louisville metro area, I think is included. So you can definitely find that information if you Google Solarize Louisville. You can also, if you're more than welcome to join, we have a Facebook group. You can join our Solar United Neighbors of Indiana Facebook group, and I know we've had a couple of posts about that program in there as well.
I think that's it. And I'm going to end the poll now. Just it looks like everybody who was going to answer has answered it. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you all so much. So let's see, that is the end of our presentation. So thank you once again. My name is Zach Schalk. I'm the Indiana Program Director. And thank you to my colleague Dan, as our Indiana Program Associate, for helping to answer all those questions. Definitely happy to stay on the line for another couple of minutes if folks have any other questions that you might want to have answered. But if not, thank you again for joining us. Hopefully you'll join one of our co-ops, and we can help you go solar. All right, well, not seeing any more questions, which is a good sign. Hopefully we answered everything. Oh, okay, let's see, I do see one. How long before we should expect to be contacted by the provider? Great question. So when you sign up for the group, and we complete our roof review, they're basically, they get access to your information via our Salesforce platform right away. So as soon as you get the welcome message that says, you're welcome to the co-op, that includes the welcome letter and the offer detail summary, you should expect to hear from them within a couple of days. They should email and or call you. But that welcome letter will include contact information. So you can also feel free to just be proactive, call them, just make sure you let them know that you're a member of the co-op, so that they give you the co-op offer. Because sometimes if you're proactively reaching out to them, they may not see you in their system. So definitely be sure to mention the co-op if you choose to contact them. How do we get in touch with you guys if we have further questions? Please shoot us an email. Dan, thank you, Dan, for sharing in the chat, but you can email us at inteam, that's Indiana team, at solarunitedneighbors.org. and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. All right, this has been a great group. You guys asked fantastic questions. Thank you all so much. I think that's probably a full lid on it. So we'll send everybody home. Have a good night. Thank you for your interest, and have a sunny tomorrow. Take care. Oops. Dan, I think you have to end the webinar. I just realized. Sorry, I only have the option to leave.